Welcome Fibre friends, you've stepped into Spellbound Stitching, where I seek to weave a little magic into every stitch, twist and skein. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. My name is Kat and I'm an avid crafter, dabbling in knitting, crochet, cross stitch, patchwork, dressmaking and baking. I'm also an indie dyer and have an online store. I've just started my journey into knitting and crochet pattern design and also a little bit of spinning this year. By day I work full-time in cybersecurity and I live in Upper Hutt, Wellington, New Zealand. And today is Thursday the 2nd of October 2025. You can find me on Ravelry as Broomstitch and on Instagram and Facebook as Broomstitch NZ. You can check out my online store at www.broomstitch.co.nz and contact me by email, direct message me on social media, or by leaving a comment below this video. I try and respond to every comment and I'm really always pleased to see them when you leave them. I have also leave all my show notes in the description box below, and I have a section for these on my website if you want to find the show notes from an older episode. For everything that I talk about in my episodes. So the notes include links wherever possible so that you can easily find the things that I talk about online. Before we dive into my enchanting podcast, I'd love it if you like what you see here today, that you could cast a quick thumbs up or give my video a like. And if you really enjoy my podcast, consider subscribing. That way you'll get a notification when I post new content. This helps to keep the creative cauldron bubbling, so to speak, and sends ripples of support out into the wider community where others with similar interests can find me and my channel. So one of the goals for my podcasts that I thought is particularly relevant for today's episode was to inspire magical making and encourage viewers to infuse their crafting with intentions and purpose, maybe even a little bit of positivity. You'd be surprised what you can weave into your projects when you're making them and what memories get trapped in them while you're doing them. I know when I pick up a piece that I have knitted or crocheted or made, that I usually remember where I was, what I was watching, who I was with at a particular moment of making the project, or maybe even the songs that I was listening to. So all my projects hold memories for me, which I think is quite nice. If you're making for somebody else, you're never going to make something for somebody with anything negative in mind. So it's sort of like you're putting all your positive thoughts and energy into your project. And then I like to think that when the person wears it, they can feel that and they appreciate that. And they know you were thinking of them the whole time that you were making it for them. So I will kick off the podcast by talking about what I'm wearing like usual. And today it is the Summer Flirt Tee by Jill Karina Bo. There are 10 sizes available in this pattern, so it's a very size inclusive pattern, and I made mine in size 2. The yarn that I used is Yeah Yarn Sparkle Sock in the colour Pegasus. Don't know if you'll be able to see the sparkles very well, maybe not, no. Which is a fingering or 4-ply weight yarn, and there's 400 meters per 100 grams on the yarn. 70% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% silver stellina. The way that Carolyn sells her yarns is she does shop drops usually, so I got this in one of her shop drops on her online store. The needles used were a 3mm and a 3.5mm needle, which are the recommended sizes. The gauge for the pattern is 24 stitches over 10 centimeters. There's no row gauge included. And I didn't record when I started and finished this one. So it was quite earlier on into my reinvigorated journey back into knitting in a big way. So I didn't get everything quite right, but I was inspired to make this shirt when I watched an episode of Strawberry Patches and saw Marina's version. The pattern does recommend 0 positive ease, but as you can see, mine's got quite a bit of positive ease. That's okay, I quite like it like that. So it's knit from the top down in the round. It has a lace yoke and a stockinette body. The lace yoke does go down quite low, so you might want to wear it at the top underneath it if that makes you more comfortable. But I really like this top. It's a particularly good one for late spring, early summer, because I've made it with so much positive ease. It's quite airy, and wool is a wonderful thing for temperature regulation, so surprisingly it does keep me quite cool, like at a relatively good temperature. I mean, there's extra ventilation given by the lace, but I really love it. It's a little bit of a different colour for me, being quite green, but it does have purples and pinks through it. Green is probably my second favourite colour. Okay, so normally then I would go on to what's in my cup, and today I'm feeling a little bit tired, so I decided to make a guarana tea. I don't remember the brand or anything from when I bought it from a local health shop years ago, but that's what I've picked for in my cup today. I hope you've got yourself a nice beverage and a knitting project to join me on this journey. There's a fair bit to show and talk about today, so bear with me. I think I'm going to start with my finished objects with my Cake Pop sweater. Now this is a design by Locatelli, and it comes in 9 sizes. I chose to make size 3. And the reason that I chose to make this now is it's been in my queue for a while, but Hohi has her fall knit along happening, so I thought, well, why not get started on it now? The needles called for are a 3.5mm needle and a 4.5, but I chose to use a 3.25 and a 4mm needle for this one for myself, just because I know I'm a little bit of a looser knitter than Hohi, and by going up a size I needed to go down a needle. So I bought the yarn at Fibretron, and it is Fibre to Go Primo and Cessia Vivienne from Wild and Woolly Yarns, and here it is. So I'll post a picture beside so you can see it in all its glory, but it's so pretty. The colorway is Wisteria, and you can see it is white with little speckles of pink, purple and greens, and I've put a mohair with it to give it a halo. You can kind of see it, a little bit of fuzz over the top, but it just softens up the color heaps actually. But I love it. I get so many compliments when I wear it. I wore it into the office the other day and everybody loved it. And I was kind of surprised that it only took 2 skeins of the fingering weight Fibre to Go Primo and 3.4 skeins of the Cessia Vivienne, so not quite 85 grams versus 206 grams, or 720 meters and 714 meters, so pretty close in meterage. The gauge for this pattern is 18 stitches by 28 rows, so it's the equivalent of a DK, and it is like a feather and fan kind of lace. I started it on the 3rd of September and I finished it on the 6th of September because I had to take some time off work because I wasn't feeling very well. So I just kind of napped on the couch and did some knitting in between, and we've ended up with a sweater really, really quickly. It was supposed to be a long burn project to go over the whole make along, but that hasn't happened. It's a circular yoke construction knitted from the top down in the round. I added an extra short row at the top here to make the neckline drop a little bit more, but it also had short rows when you get to under the arms at the back, which I thought was quite interesting to give the back even more of a rise. And I found that I actually quite like the fit of this one quite a bit more than a lot of my other sweaters. I feel like I'm often pulling them down. It recommends 0 to 4 inches of positive ease, and I think I got about 1 inch of positive ease. The construction of the feather and fan is quite interesting, and it's not a standard feather and fan pattern, but it's still very intuitive, and I think Hohi did that so that it could go across many different sizes. So at the edges you do ribbing, and you also do a little rolled hem by adding a few rows of stockinette. So it's very clever, and I love the fit of it, and I love the way it feels when I'm wearing it. And yeah, I decided that I needed to be brave and make myself a white sweater with some purple finishes, and I'm so glad that I did. And now I just have to look after it. But really pleased with that one. So that's my first FO, is the Cake Pop sweater by Locatelli. So I guess I'll go on to some of my smaller projects that I've finished now. And there's actually going to be a fair few socks because I've finished a lot of socks this month. So these are just my standard Afterthought heel tube socks. So I knit a tube, put in a toe, then cut in the heel. And I got 2 pairs out of one Zauberball Crazy. This one is for me and this one is for my other half, and thankfully we've both got really small feet, so I can get 2 pairs. So I haven't washed and blocked them. I'll pop one of each on the sock blocker so you can see them a little bit better. But I had to do a little bit of colour management to get the ombre to work on both socks by unwinding the ball and rewinding it so that the colours were in the right order. But yeah, that's just kind of my train knitting. So I chuck a ball of yarn and some DPNs in my knitting bag so I can just knit a tube on the train because it's mindless and I don't have to worry about what I'm doing. One of my friends did ask me if I ever do traditional construction of socks, and yes, I do 2 toe up and I do top down with a heel flap and gusset sometimes, but this is my preferred method just for simplicity of having a to-go project sake. And I quite like the fit of them as well because I have really slim feet. So my sock blockers aren't quite big enough for my other half's socks, but you get the idea. So I have ombre orange to purple and they have ombre orange to purple, but a lot more orange. My hair is purple, Ash's hair is orange, so it works. So that's 2 pairs of socks. So the Shawl Wool Zauberball Crazy colour number is 115. It's a fingering 4-play sock weight yarn. It's 100% wool. There's 420 meters per 100 grams on one of these balls, and I purchased it from Loopine Wool Co.'s online store, which is based in Auckland in Parnell. Yeah, so they were roughly 50 grams each, but I did, so one of the orange ones has a faded heel and the other one just has a whatever was left heel, but Ash doesn't mind. So that's the first lot of socks off my needles. It's just vanilla socks, and they've been work in progress for a long time and finally are finished objects. But the next lot of socks, I've made a few of these before, but I mentioned in a previous episode that my other half has started a knitting journey and wanted to learn how to knit. So they wanted to learn how to make socks. So I figured that DK weight socks was probably the easiest way for them to learn. So I've used the DK weight vanilla socks by the Crazy Sock Lady pattern. There's 3 sizes available in the pattern, and I made the size small for me and they made the medium for them. And I saw some amazing yarn on Marina's podcast, Strawberry Patches, again, called Glowworm Jellies. And here they are. So that's on her Zebra DK base, which is 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon. These have already been worn a little bit, so they're a little bit scuffed, but that's them. Couldn't resist the colour when I saw it. It looked so fun, and who doesn't love fun, funky socks? So I bought 2 skeins because they have 220 meters per 100 grams on them, so that we could make matching socks. So we sat down and watched a couple of films. We watched the Enola Holmes movie and Harriet, the Harriet Tubman movie, while we knitted socks. So the gauge is 28 stitches over 10 centimeters. Again, no row gauge. I used 63 grams of my ball to make these socks, so I'm just going to use the remaining 37 grams to either make some shorties or pair with some other yarn and do contrast heels, toes and cuffs, because I have another of Marina's Zebra DKs in my stash. So I started them on the 7th of September and finished them on the 10th of September. Yeah, I love them. You could probably alter the sizing by changing your needles and changing your stitch gauge. I've made a pair for my mum and I've made a pair for my dad, and now I finally have made a pair for myself. And they are very cozy, and I think much more DK socks in my future. So the 4th and final pair of socks that came off my needles this time around were actually a test knit for the Black Cat Knitting Company, which is Alana, who owns Lupine Wool Co. And she designs under the name Black Cat Knitting Company. And she has a pattern that she has just released yesterday called Black Cat Favorite Socks. And she's been working on this pattern for years, testing all sorts of different options on herself. And then she's finally come up with something that she's sort of decided is infallible. So she got heaps of testers to test the pattern before it was released ahead of Socktober. And it's finally out in the world, and here are my test knit socks. I knit these ones for Ash out of Joy of Yarn Locomotive Sock. Now, unfortunately, I don't think James has this base anymore. It's not on his website, but he does have another sock base that's equally as good. So this colorway is called Something Good, and it's all purpley lilac colors and some yellow and some darker purples. I think it's gorgeous, and Ash has been stoked to wear them. So the base is 80% merino and 20% Lincoln. It's a fingering or 4-ply weight yarn. And the Something Good is a nod to Bik Runga's song, because James likes to name his yarns after Kiwi female singers. I used 2mm needles to achieve the gauge of 32 stitches over 40 rounds. The recommended needle size is 22.5mm. And again, I used 63 grams of this yarn to make these socks. I started them on the 6th of September and finished them on the 15th of September. Being that it was a test knit, I kind of prioritized them. There's heaps of different options available in the pattern to customize to the size that you want based on measurements of your foot. It is a toe-up construction, so we start down here with a toe-up cast on that I had never done before, which is always exciting. I try and pick projects for me that I'm learning a new technique every time. So toe up, then a short row heel, and she's got a clever little gusset in here that allows for additional stitches in the instep, which is a problem when you do like a short row heel. Quite often people say that it gets too tight across the instep, so she's managed to figure that problem out. And then there's ribbing going up the leg, so it's just a bit more clingy and holds on to your foot better. The fit of these are fantastic. They're really comfortable. Apparently they're a little bit big for me, but I tried them on anyway, and I would agree that they're very comfortable, and the shape is lovely. To make the second one, I don't think I even looked at the pattern very much. It became very intuitive, and I can see why this is also Alana's on the go pattern for socks. I will say be very careful with your measuring. Make sure you're measuring to at least 2 inches before short of the heel of your foot to make sure that you get the fit right. There were a few people that had to rip back. She's offering 25% off for the month of October because it is Socktober. Now, Loopine Wool Co. every year runs a knit along called Socktober, where you can knit or crochet socks, and that's socks from any pattern, any yarn, any design with knit or crochet. And all you have to do to participate is to tag them in your post on Instagram, so at Loopine Wool Co., and use the hashtag Socktober, Loopine Socktober 2025, I think it is. I'll put it in the caption so you can see what the hashtag is. But the whole idea of their knit along is just to participate and have fun creating socks together. And some people do some really wild socks, and my Instagram feed fills up with amazing sock projects. But you can get those for 25% off, and they're a fantastic pattern, and I highly recommend that you try them because they are well worth it. And you can tell it didn't actually take me very long to finish. I think it only took me a week. And that wasn't exclusively knitting on them, but mostly knitting on them. So I have one more finished object, which has been a languishing whip for a while. I kind of put it in the naughty corner for a wee bit, and that is the Erla top by Valentina Bogdanova. And the reason I put it in the naughty corner is because I had to rip it out a few times to make sure it was the fit that I was happy with. But the pattern comes in 9 sizes, and I chose to make the size 3. I made it out of Blackwattle yarn and fibre, which unfortunately isn't available anymore because they recently announced the closure of their shop online. So that's a little bit sad, but you might still be able to find it with some stockists. I got mine from Maker in New Brunswick and Melbourne when we went to visit, and and it is their Sweet Pea base, which is 60% merino, 20% alpaca, and 10% silk in the colorway Rich Emerald. So here is my version. I have worn it a few times, so it is a little bit crinkly, sorry. But it is a cabled yoke design, short sleeve t-shirt with a beautiful scalloped neck. Now the pattern does have a panel that you can put in the back to make the back of the, like a V-shaped panel to cover up the back of the neck, but I like the scalloping, so I'm going to leave that because I think it's a nice feature. So it's a 4-ply fingering weight yarn. There was 400 meters per 100 grams, but the needle sizes are 2mm and 2.5mm needles, so that it was also a little bit of a slog trying to knit on 2.5mm needles. So you start with the 2mm needles and then you move into the 2.5s to give a little bit more room in the bust or chest area. Started this one on the 13th of January and I only just finished it on the 21st of September. So it's pretty intricate. I had to, it was definitely a concentrate knit to do the cable. I didn't have to rip out until I got to the sleeves and the body. So I would probably say this is like an intermediate to skilled knitter to knit this pattern. I also saw somebody else wearing it at the White It Up Wool weekend and thought, oh, I must finish mine. But I decided that I didn't like the sleeves in the pattern because she kind of just wants you to knit straight down, which gives you kind of a baggy sleeve. When you do a round yoke with cables or lace, you can sort of get puffing happening. That's happening on this one. I think it's purely because of my blocking. But I wanted a shaped fitted sleeve, so I decided I did a whole sleeve, and I had to rip it back because I decided I wanted to do shaping under the arm to bring it in, so it was more close fitting. So I did that for my sleeves, and then I had done the body, but I wasn't happy with my gauge or my knitting, so I ripped it back, but I also added some waist shaping in, just so it fits a little bit better on me. Yeah, and I love it, and I wore it into the office the other day and got some compliments on that one too. There's a well-written pattern, really lovely design. I just don't think I'll be knitting anything on 2.25mm needles anytime soon. So that's all my finished objects. I guess that brings us to new cast-ons, and I actually have a couple of things to show you this time. So the first one's kind of probably going to be a bit of a surprise because it wasn't in my queue and I didn't have the yarn for it, but my other half saw my Glow Hair Frost shawl by Stephen West that I had done and decided that they also would really like a large shawl. So we went through Stephen's patterns because I had so much fun making that other one, and we landed on the Quirky Quintet shawl by Stephen West. So it's a shawl, so there's only one size, and it requires 5 different colors, hence the name Quirky Quintet, and it's knit on 3.25mm needles, and you know I don't really care about gauge when it comes to a shawl normally. However, this one I didn't realize the yarn that we'd purchased has less on the skein, so it's only 338 meters per 100 grams, so it's actually kind of more like a sport weight, but it's Mrs. Peacock's yarns in her base, her serpentine base, and this is where we've got to so far. So the palette's quite autumnal. So we've got a rusty orange colour called Fire Glow. There is a purple here and here, and that one's called Velvet. The silver one is called Silver Wood. The green is called Lush, and the gold is called Treasure. They're all available at the moment on her web store. But yeah, that's where we're at. So we haven't got terribly far. I've got a long way to go. I'm probably about 1/5 of the way through width-wise. I started it on the 30th of August, so not long after I did the last episode of my podcast, actually. But it's got a beautiful I-cord detail along the top, and you just carry the colours, and I'm weaving in the ends as I go so that I don't have a bunch of ends to weave in at the end, because nobody likes that job. And it is the idea of this one is textures and geometric patterns and mosaic colour work. So it's using slip stitches to do a lot of the colour work rather than stranded colour work, but you still do end up with floats on the back. Yeah, so there's checks, stripes, triangles and columns. It's going to be a half circle shawl when it's done, and I'm just sort of pottering away at that when I feel like it, because it's quite interesting, but it's, you know, Stephen West shawls are big, so they've got long rows. It's just when I feel like doing something interesting. Okay, so the second new cast on that I have to show you is the Winter's Beach Cardi by Andrea Mowri. So this design comes in 10 sizes, and I've chosen to make size 2, and I cast this one on the 22nd of September. It is a DK weight pattern, and it's kind of an open cardigan that's intended to be worn like a jacket that is a cozy, no fuss kind of style. It's a simple cable design. And I am using John Arbin Textiles Appledore DK in the colorway Quench, which is this guy. And I don't know how well it will show up, but there's, it's like a cream colored base yarn with a whole lot of other colors heathered into it. So pinks, blues, yellows, which means it comes out purple in some parts. That is 40% Devon close wool, 40% Romney, and 20% Exmoor blue face sheep. There's 250 meters per 100 grams, and here is where we've got to. So you can see I've got up to where we've done the Afterthought pockets. So we've got waste yarn sitting in there waiting to cut out the pockets, or pull out the pockets rather. It requires 1,044 meters to 2,151 meters for the pattern. So I've got 5 skeins of this yarn, and I'm just going to sort of hope that it's enough. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's got a finished edge already, so once you're done with the panels, you don't need to pick up to do a button band or anything. That's the front, and that's around the back. And then back around the front again. So we're knitting flat at the moment because we're doing it from the bottom up. And one of the cool things about this design is the ribbing along the bottom isn't a standard 2x2 or 1x1. It follows the cables, so it flows all the way up. Yeah, it's a little bit of a, I wouldn't say it's too rustic. Like, I can have it close to my skin and it doesn't irritate me, but if you are sensitive to roughness of yarn, maybe this isn't for you. I intend to wear it like a jacket, so it's not going to bother me. It'll be over the top of other clothes, I imagine. But I've got the yarn from Lisa from Unwind and Knit With Me, her online store, and she bought her version of this, which inspired my make, to Woolfest. So I've seen the yarn in person knit in this pattern, and I got to touch and feel it, and it didn't feel as I guess crunchy or rustic after it had been washed and worn a little bit. So I'm assuming it's going to soften up, and maybe there's just spinning wheels and things in here that are making it feel a little bit more structured at this point. But I'm really happy with it. I'm chugging along quite nicely on it, as you can see. Not too far away from being able to split for sleeves. I've got another couple of repeats to do. And then, yeah, we'll see where we get to. I'll probably have it as a finished object for next time. But I figured because of the colours, I should probably have it ready to wear for spring as a jacket. So that's the plan anyway. Because it's quite a simple cable design, I'd say if you're an adventurous beginner, you could even give this one a go. It's a very well written pattern, as all Andrea Mowri's are. I did get a little bit confused when I got to the pockets because I've never knit anything with pockets before. So it was kind of just I'll read it through, I don't really understand, but I'll just trust the process. And once I actually started doing it, it was fine. It was easy, and it made complete and total sense once I got there. So fingers crossed, everything going well. I will have it as a finished object for next time, of course, unless I get distracted by something else. Now I don't have any whips to show you because I finished my Erla top, the green one, and I've actually ripped out a couple of my whips. So Katie from the Knit Nook did like a frog it, finish it, or save it, and so I've frogged a couple. Some of them I intend to remake, but just want to change some of the things because they were self-designed, and others I've just decided I've left it sitting as a whip too long and I can't remember where I'm up to in the pattern, so I'll just start again. But none of them have come off the needles with no intention to reknit them for the same project. So unfortunately no whips, but that's okay. We're going to go straight into my queue instead, and it's sort of going to bleed into acquisitions a little bit as well. But the first thing that I have decided that I need to make in the very near future is the Awen sweater by Meghan Babin. It comes in 9 different sizes, and I'm going to make the size 2. It is a worsted weight pattern, but I'm going to use a spongy DK that I've got. It requires 1,504 to 3,223 meters of yarn, and looking at the pattern, I would say the difficulty level of this is very hard, just because of the intricacy of the cables and the amount of concentration it's going to take. It's definitely not going to be a sit and chat and knit kind of piece. It's going to be potentially quite a slog, brain-wise that is. I thoroughly enjoy the challenge of cables and lace, you might have guessed by some of the patterns that I choose to make, but I also like to have simple patterns like socks on the go, so I do have some plain stockinette that I can just chuck in my bag and take with me. So there's 3 different needle sizes recommended in the pattern. It is a 3.5, a 3.75 and a 4.5 millimeter needle, and the gauge is 18 stitches over 29 rows, which I think is pretty good. And that works for a DK weight for me. I quite like the gauge that even 16 stitches in DK gives me, so 18 stitches will be great. The notes that Meghan has put in her description was that the design is inspired by the woods and wilds of the Hudson Valley. It is a unisex raglan that is knit from the bottom up and pieced. So I don't mind a piece garment. I quite like the structure that it gives me. A lot of other people don't. They just prefer doing top down in the round. But yeah, no, I don't mind doing a pieced one. That's how I learnt to knit. So it's a heavily cabled design with a folded neckband and up to 14 centimeters of positive ease. Now the reason I say that it's going to bleed into my acquisitions a little bit is because I was watching Bibi and Stephen's podcast, and I'll talk a bit more about them in my podcast's review section of my episode. But Stephen and Bibi are massive fans of Outlaw yarn, and Stephen mentioned that this particular base that I had been eyeing up, he suspected that Deb might not be stocking it anymore. So I thought, well, I need to get some before it disappears forever. And that is the Darkness DK base by Outlaw Yarns. So I got it in the colorway A King's Ransom, which is this gorgeous deep red. It's showing a little brighter on the camera than it is in person. But isn't it lovely? So I got a sweater quantities worth of this one. And the makeup of this yarn is 55% colored merino, so it's dark, which is the Darkness DK. I think it's the black merino sheep mixed with 38% of white merino or cream merino and 7% cashgora, so goat essentially, but it's so soft and so squishy, and I'm a massive fan of Deb's yarns, and you can see the thickness of the yarn. It's actually quite puffy, so I anticipate that this won't be a problem for a worsted weight or Aran weight even sweater. There is 129 meters per 50 grams. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to using that, and that is going to jump on my needles very soon because it's either going to be I need to get it done or it's going to be a slow burn project. Haven't decided on that one just yet, but that's my plan, my first plan anyway. My second plan is to do the Billie pullover by Sari Nordland. So it is another all over cable design. It's knitted top down in the round though. So I'm going to try the two different kinds. We're going to do a pieced cabled sweater and we're going to do a top down in the round cabled sweater. Just I guess to compare the experience. I kind of want to do them in tandem so I can take good notes for myself, or at least mental notes. I don't tend to be very good at writing them down. But it's a honeycomb and cables design, and there's also a cable in the raglan just here that you can see in the picture that I've got up. And it looks like it would be really intuitive once you get to the point where you split for sleeves and you can just sort of go. I haven't knit any of Sari's designs, although I've got a fair few in my queue. But I had some yarn that I purchased that I thought would be perfect for this one, and that is this Naturally Loyal Vegas tweed. And it's a really pale purple colour. It's looking a little bit more tan on the screen, but it has little flecks of purple, pink and green. Just a little bit like the Cake Pop sweater actually, but it's on a purpley pinky base. So I got that from the Knit World Wellington store when they had a sale. I got myself a whole bag of it, so I thought that would make a good Billie pullover. I think also to alter the design that Sari's got there is I would probably prefer to do a bit of a rapid increase around the cuff so it brings the sleeve in, because I don't tend to like an open sleeve personally. So for the yarn, this shade is 31749. There's 105 meters per 50 grams, and you need between 860 and 1850 meters. And I've decided to make size 2, so I do have enough yarn there. The difficulty I'd say is probably intermediate, purely because of the brain power that cables takes sometimes. If you're not familiar with cables, it probably is an okay entry to cables kind of sweater, but the details around the yoke might get a little bit overwhelming. The recommended needle size is size 4mm and 4.5mm needle, and the gauge is 20 stitches over 22 rows. So a slightly tighter gauge than the Awen sweater, that's okay. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to making both. Everybody talks about how they love spring because there's so many beautiful flowers, and while I don't disagree with that at all, I do tend to find that spring here is wet and cold. Like, we've gone from 15 degree or 12 to 15 degrees Celsius days during the winter down to 10 or 11 degree days, and like last night was 2 degrees at night, so it's cold still. So I don't think I'm going to run out of time to wear another sweater if I make a pullover now. But also I'm generally someone who kind of runs cold. The only reason I'm sitting here in a t-shirt today is because when I wrote the notes for this show, it was actually a really hot day on the weekend, and I've had to put the heat pump on so that I can stay warm and not have to redo my notes. Cheating a little bit, I know, but gotta do what you gotta do, right? Yeah, so looking forward to 2 very heavily cabled designs. I need to find some other plain stockinette patterns since I've got a cable cardigan on the go. I've got 2 cable pullovers in the works potentially. And I've got a complicated Stephen West shawl. So I also need to find something that's a little bit more simple, I think. So that sort of takes us into new designs or new designers. Now these might not be new to you, but they're new to me, either design or designers. The first one that I have on my list is the Cleo blouse by Irene Lynn, of Irene Lynn Designs. Now I have a couple of Irene's patterns in my queue, in my favorites, and I've purchased one of her patterns before, but this is a new, I haven't made any of them. I did start making the Millie cardigan, but the yarn I'd chosen wasn't right. It didn't show it off enough, so I ripped it out and have decided to put that aside until I can find some better suited yarn. But this blouse is, I think, a really cute design, maybe for spring, maybe for early summer, maybe for later summer, but it is a lace mohair or like short-sleeved cardigan with DK around the all the cuffs and the hems and in the ribbing, basically, where you hold the lace and the DK weight together. So it's like a meshy, airy design, perfect for wearing over dresses or even t-shirt and jeans potentially. And you can make the sleeves whatever length you like, but I really like how she's got hers finishing just above the elbows. So there's 7 designs in the pattern, but it starts at about, I think it's 92 centimeters up to 163, so it is really size inclusive. There's just quite big jumps between the sizes because the recommended ease is up to 20 centimeters of positive ease. I'd probably say an advanced beginner purely because using single strand of mohair can be a little bit challenging. I've made a top myself, and it was again quite early on to my reinvigorated knitting journey, and sort of thought, why did I do this to myself? This is quite tricky. The recommended needles are 4mm and 5mm needles, so it creates quite a meshy design, a light and airy fabric. It's worked seamlessly in the round top down. It's a crop style, but obviously you can make it any length that you want. Keeping in mind that if you add more length to the sleeves or to the body of the cardigan, you will need to purchase more yarn than what is recommended. The quantity needed is 450 meters to 1800 meters of the lace mohair and 168 meters to 672 meters for the DK. And potentially, if you didn't want DK held with mohair, you could potentially also use fingering weight or 4-ply weight yarn for the neckline and the cuffs and the hem if you wanted to make it a little bit lighter. But I think it gives it quite a bit of added structure, and I think this definitely needs to be in my to make list once I find some. I'm always on the lookout for beautiful mohair fluffs, so if you've got any recommendations, absolutely pop them in the comment section for me. Obviously my favorites are purples and greens, but I'm also, everybody needs lots of neutrals, and I'm not opposed to knitting in black yarn because I have a lamp that sits directly over my shoulder behind the couch, so I can see at night, and I use stainless steel needles so they show up quite easily. The next one that I thought would be a good spring knit that I stumbled across is Fresh Squeezed Juice by Danny Garardi, and that comes in 7 sizes as well, which starts at 71 centimeter bust and goes all the way up to 152, so it's pretty size inclusive as well. Her recommended ease is 0 to 15 centimeters, and it's a t-shirt, but it's a DK weight t-shirt, so it's still a little bit heavier for when it's feeling a little bit crisp in the spring weather. You need 686 to 1362 meters, and I'd say the difficulty for this one is an advanced beginner, purely because of the beautiful cables and the tiny little bit of lace detail in the circular yoke. So recommended needles are 3.5 and 4mm needles with a gauge of 20 stitches over 27 rows. So it's worked top down in the round. I've already said it's a circular yoke, and there's quite a bit of texture in the yoke, but then it's just plain stockinette knitting thereafter. The leaf and lemon design I thought was really cute, especially for spring or summer. Actually, you could make it out of a cotton DK and then it would be a perfect summer top. And I think the fact that she's chosen to knit it in that beautiful citrusy yellow just sets off the name perfectly. Yellow's not really a colour that I wear, so I would have to find something that sort of fit. I kind of think maybe something like the wisteria colour with the white with the speckles in it might be a go for me. Look at me talking about knitting white clothes. But yeah, I think that would make, I've said that I would like more DK t-shirts in my wardrobe, and I think, you know, that big data algorithm heard me and showed me this beautiful top, and I'm actually really excited to add it to my queue. So that takes us to acquisitions. Now there's not many, and you've already seen one. So the first one that I showed you was the King's Ransom Darkness DK from Outlaw Yarn in this beautiful red. Now, because this sweater is not intended for me, this is intended for Ash. I also got myself some at the same time. Guess what colour? Purple. Now this one's showing a little more grapey than it is in person. It's a little bit more blue. I tend to prefer like a bluer purple, and even my hair's not showing up the correct color on film. So I don't know. It's a lot more blue in person. Same with this yarn. So we're going to have not quite matching sweaters because I'm not going to make the same design, but sweaters out of the same yarn. We needed some each, just in case it disappeared. And if it doesn't, I'm just as happy because it is super squishy, soft, gorgeous yarn. And I'm really excited to work with both. Need to find the perfect pattern for this one. If anybody's got any suggestions, of course, always open. I love cables, I love lace. So that's the yarn. That's all the yarn that I've bought. And now I mentioned last time on my podcast, sort of, with a little caption that I'd forgotten about one of my acquisitions from a previous week, the previous time. So I thought I'd better feature it this time. And this was a book that I got from James from Joy of Yarn. Magical Knits from the North by Katinka Sarajona, maybe, if they're Scandinavian, and Mary Mort. So it's all magical knitting patterns based on a lot of Nordic folklore and beliefs. Some gorgeous designs. All sorts of different types of projects too. Like there's sweaters, there's socks, there's scarves, there's capes. So I found a designer that I want to knit for one of my friends. These socks. And I definitely want to make this sweater at some point. This beautiful colorwork yoke. And another one I thought I'd point out is these cool leg warmers. They would make a great addition to anybody's yoga outfit, I think, to keep yourself warm. But I love the symbolism and the stories that they've each got. They explain the folklore behind them, and who's inspired, or who or what has inspired the designs. And I actually went for coffee with James and he said, I have to show you something that I just got in the shop, and he brought out this book, and I said, how do I pay you for it now, because I need to take this home with me immediately. So yeah, I got that from Joy of Yarn online, and he has that available in his shop now if you're interested in getting your hands on a Magical Knits from the North book. Very stoked with my purchase. Thank you, James. So that's all my acquisitions. I was very good this month, but not if you consider that I got 2 sweater quantities worth of yarn. But I only bought 2, so I'm going to take it. So it sort of seems only fitting that since I have already talked about outlaw yarns in my acquisitions, that I should talk about outlaw yarns in my indie of the episode. So Outlaw Yarn is run by an amazing lady called Deb. She's really good at doing tones and shades across her range. So what I mean by that is she'll take a purple and there'll be all sorts of steps through the colour of that shade of purple, which makes her yarn, they're also non-superwash, so that makes her yarns great for doing colour work. And the fact that you can get similar tones means they're also very good for fades and ombres. Yeah, I love her yarn. I made my Calypso sweater in her Rhapsody base, which is a possum merino composition. She's got this one. She's got a sock base, which is a New Zealand half-breed mixed with merino base. She's got another DK, a worsted, and I know that she is doing a fundraiser for breast cancer with a new base that should have launched on the website by now, maybe. Go and check it out. She's donating $5 from every skein to breast cancer. She has really unique bases, so it's a lot different from anything else that you can get. She has non-superwash yarns with a more rustic, natural feel, but that doesn't mean they're not super soft. These are so soft. I wish you could reach through the screen and squish them. And her sock is a really hardy sock base, and it's all natural. That possum merino blend that I talked about that I made my Calypso, because it's technically a 4-ply yarn, but or a fingering weight, but because it's quite puffy and the possum in it gives it a halo, it actually works really well across sport weight patterns, which is what the Calypso is, and even DK, because Ash is currently making a DK sweater in that yarn. And like I said, this one, I think that it's so puffy that I think it will work perfectly for a worsted or maybe even an Aran weight sweater, which is why I've got it. She started Outlaw Yarns in 2014 and she had a whole range of different bases. So she's been on quite a journey with discovering what bases she likes to work with and what ones were available and what she could get a hold of. Unfortunately, the pandemic in 2020 forced her to close the doors to her store, but she was so determined to keep going that she now has a showroom and dye house at her home. She has really fun, punky labels. So this one you can see, because it's got Kashkora in it, there is a goat on it, but all of her bases are Rebel something, and she's got Rockstar sheep on all of her labels, which you can see in the photo that I've got put up next to this video. She's got some really fun, funky names, like this one's called Dark Sarcasm, A King's Ransom, and one of them's Molten Toothpaste, which is a brighter red than this one. But I think she's just an awesome lady. I haven't had the privilege of meeting her in person other than a quick hello at Woolfest, but we're quite obsessed with Deb's yarns in our house, and I highly recommend that you go and check her out. So normally I give a bit of a crafter's tip at this point in my episode, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about the difference between stitch markers and progress keepers and the different uses that you can have for them. So there's all sorts of different kinds of stitch markers out there, and you kind of just need to find the ones that work for you. So I've got some plain rings that I use sometimes. These ones I find really good for breaking up lace patterns when you've got multiple sections of the same design, to make sure that you've got the right stitch counts in between each section so that you don't have to pull back an entire row. It's usually really easy to spot where you've gone wrong because you'll end up with the wrong number of stitches in your rows. I think I've done it on my Winter's Beach cardigan with the little light bulb stitch markers, so in between each panel, so I can tell when a panel starts and finishes. It just really helps you to understand where you're up to. So there's the little light bulb stitch markers, which are really handy. They're little pin ones. I sometimes even use those to hold things together for seams, but I do tend to find that I get annoyed that they slide around on the needles, and if you're using skinny needles, they slide down into here, and then when you try and slide your needles along, you have to try and figure out where the stitch was meant to go and push it back on, which can be annoying. But then you've got like pretty ones like this one. It's just a little book on a book charm, and it's got a little ring. So those are the ones that I use for a beginning of round marker because it's quite light, but it's different from the other plain stitch markers. So you can really tell where your beginning of round is. And I have a little tin that I have my pretty stitch, like these kinds of ones, in. And I have a little tin with my light bulb stitch markers in. That one usually goes in a project bag if I'm traveling. And you can also get other kinds. My first stitch markers I got were these little plastic catch ones. They can also be quite good for pinning things together, or if you need something to really stand out. But then you also have progress keepers, and these are the ones with the like a catch attached to them. So these ones I got from James from Joy of Yarn, but they have a little like a lobster claw attached to them. Now I use these ones in lots of different ways. I use them for either marking which side is the front and back, which is particularly useful if you're doing a garter stitch, for example, and you can't remember whether you're looking at the right side or the wrong side. So when you go to pick up your project, when you've put it aside because you've gone to bed, you don't have to try and spend ages figuring it out because you've got a stitch marker on a progress keeper, sorry, on the front of your work. The other way that I use them is if I'm reaching a point in my pattern where I need to start counting. So if it says do 40 rows and I don't want to sit there clicking a stitch counter, I'll just put a progress keeper in the row and it will tell me, then I can just count down to figure out how many I've got. And the other way that I use them, and often it's the little light bulb stitch markers in this case, but like when you're doing socks, when I get to finish the toe increases or decreases, I'll put a stitch marker. And then when I go to start the heel increases, I will put a stitch marker so that when I go to make the second sock, I can see how many rows that I did for the first sock. And again, when I did this little bit, I put in stitch markers here so then I could count how many rows. The other thing that you can use them for that's really handy, if you're doing something like where it says every 10 rows, do a thing. Usually that's sleeves, so it'll say decrease every 10 rows. You can put little stitch markers along your sleeve so that when you go to do the second sleeve, again, you can see how many you did because there's so many stitch markers along your sleeve, or you can see how many rows in between. Like you might lose count. You might put it down because you got distracted and then pick it up and go, oh my gosh, I don't know where I was. So stitch markers, I use them a lot as my little handy dandy reminders. But also, because they're pretty, like I've got a collection of little pretty ones that I've got through the years from various clubs or, oops, that's the wrong way around. It's not going to look that pretty. Lots of pretty ones from various clubs or things that I've belonged to. They're just fun. They're like jewellery for your knitting in a lot of cases. That's a good one to talk about, jewellery for your knitting. Yeah, and they make you smile when you pick up your project and see it. This is one of my stitch markers that I sell on my website, little tiny mushroom. There's different kinds of lobster clasps as well, so that's a bigger catch on that one. Yeah, just have a play with different kinds and figure out what works best for you. I sent some prizes off and I included some of my stitch markers in my prizes, and my prize winners said, funnily enough, I'm usually a magpie, but stitch markers is never something I've bought myself. They're a great little treat, and they're actually a really good stocking stuffer or a request for non-knitters to buy you, because then they're not going to feel like they're buying the wrong thing, right? Because it's just pretty things for your knitting. So get yourself some stitch markers or progress keepers or both and have a play. The sets I sell on my website are usually a mixture of both. Okay, after a crafter's tip, we go into a cyber tip, because that's what I do for a job, and it never hurts to have more information that you can use to help you in your day-to-day. Or if you run a business yourself, you might find some of these tips useful. So I'm going to talk a little bit about social media today. You've probably seen on social media posts about giveaways or those fun games that ask you like 20 questions and then tag a friend so that they can play the game too. They might look harmless, but often they're not. So sometimes on social media platforms, those giveaway scams are from fake businesses to try and gather information or to get more traction on their posts. So giveaway scams spread fast because people like and comment and share before checking if the business is even real. Everybody wants free stuff. So that's how they kind of get you with the temptation. A page might have a shiny logo and glossy pictures, but sometimes those can be AI generated to look professional. Some of the things to look out for that are red flags is if the account appears to be brand new, like it was only created very recently and it doesn't have very many posts, or if it has taken a lot of posts from other content creators and put them on their post, on their page to make it look a little bit more full, and it doesn't look consistent. So just take a few moments to check, not by necessarily clicking into the social media profile, but looking at other avenues like Googling them online, just to make sure you have confidence before you go interacting with those posts at all. And checking that they've got a good reputation. Reviews aren't necessarily something to rely on unless you've read quite a few of them, because they can be generated by bots as well. But checking whether they have any kind of rating system on there, or whether you know anybody who's used the company before. Essentially what they're doing is looking to see if there is an active profile, and if somebody is gullible enough to pick to interact with their post. It's kind of like phishing but on social media. So the other just for fun question games that you see a lot, like they often ask things about what's your first job, what's your pet's name, what's your favorite teacher. But those same kind of details can be used to reset your password. So you might remember some platforms ask you to put in security questions that will help you reset your password in the event that you forget. So by filling out this information on your social media page, you're kind of giving an attacker information that they can harvest. And then by tagging your friends in those, they're getting your friends to play the game, then they're also giving their information, and it's also helping spread the scam. And we don't want to do their job for them, right? You're giving away information that you possibly shouldn't, and that's the whole point of social engineering, is to make you give away information you normally wouldn't. So the takeaway kind of is simple. Before you like, comment, or share a post on social media that maybe looks a little bit too good to be true, trust your instincts. If something seems off, don't go near it. But ask yourself, like, take a little pause and ask yourself, is this from a trusted source? Do I know this company? Do I know any of these people? And how can I tell if it's safe? A little bit of caution can help protect you and protect others that are associated with you, your friends and your family, to stop scammers getting free advertising and free access to your information. I guess it's just a little bit more about being conscious of what you are interacting with and posting online. AI is making everything seem a little bit scary, but it's sometimes easy to tell with an image. Sometimes they look a little bit too perfect. Sometimes there may be a little thing in there that's a little bit warped, like hands or fingers are sometimes a giveaway. Words, they might look like English, but if you look closer, they're a bit scrambled. A shadow might not look quite right. A limb might be a little bit warped. So just slow down. Take a bit of we don't want to take any chances, right? So just stop, pause, take a breath, make sure you know it's real before you do anything with it. I think we'll go back into talking about some yarny related stuff, which brings me to my Broomstitch feature, which is a little bit about what's available in my shop. I try and focus on one thing at a time so as to not just be bombarding you with what's in the shop update. But I mentioned in my intro that I've started a bit of a journey into pattern design for knitting and crochet. I've got a lot of things half drafted and a lot of things sitting in my brain, and there's only so fast that I can get them out. But you can find them on my website in the patterns section. So if you go to shop and down to patterns, you'll be able to find all my patterns available there. And I've done a little bit in the background that allows it that if you purchase from my website, you can also hit a button and it will transfer the pattern that you've downloaded into your Ravelry library, so that you've got a digital copy there as well, or you've got a record of it there as well. All the patterns on my website are instant download, so you don't have to wait for me to verify anything or send you an email. You can download it as soon as you finish checking out. But I also have my patterns available on Ravelry as well. If you prefer to purchase from there, it doesn't bother me whichever way you would like to get them, whatever works for you. So I guess the first thing that I will talk about is the launch of the pattern for my Banry shawl. So this is a pattern I designed to show off my goddess collection of yarns. It is a triangular shawl based on the traditional hap design for a Shetland shawl, and it has like a take on a feather and fan lace with a faux cable. My testers have finished their testing, so we're able to launch this out into the world. Thank you very much to Jill and Anne for testing for me. Very excited to be able to launch this. I knit it up to show off the collection myself, and so many people commented that they loved the pattern that I thought I better write it down. So it took a bit of reverse engineering because I didn't make very good notes when I was just knitting it. But yeah, that's available on Ravelry and my website now if you want to download your own copy and get knitting. So it's a 4-ply fingering weight yarn. I've used my Morgan Le Fay Sparkle base and the Sparkle mini set. I still have plenty of the minis on my website if you would like to use the colours. There's 3 different sizes in the pattern. This size is the large, and that's the size shown in all the pictures. So you can see it's quite big, quite long. Very long. It's greater than the wingspan of my arms. But there is also a small version if you would like a shorter, more bandana style, and there is a medium version as well. And there's different suggestions for different configurations of the stripes. So this particular configuration is to use up pretty much all of each of the minis. You can obviously put them in whatever colour order that you like. I chose to go with the maiden, then the mother, then the crone goddesses. So this one is Finguala, this one is Nick Nevin, this one is Skathic, this one is Breed, this one is Bankarik, this one is Morag, this one is Eilish, and this one is the Kalach. And the grey is called Standing Stones. So all of those are available on my website. You can get full skeins of the bright colours, or you can get a mini set and get all the colours. So that has launched and is available on Ravelry and my website now. Thank you again to my lovely testers. I will be putting test calls out in the future for other designs, but I've got 2 more that I have finished to show you. So the next one is something I had in my brain for a very long time and really wanted, because I often have my hair tied up in a bun or in a ponytail, and I don't want to take it out when I want to go for a walk, and I don't want to put a beanie on because then you look funny having a big nubble in the back of your hat when you're going for a walk. So I decided I needed something to keep my ears warm. So I picked up some Dark Harbour yarns, Port fingering, and Hesperus silk mohair, and decided to create a headband. So I've paired the 2 yarns together, held them double to make a thick headband that's really warm and goes over my ears with a knot detail in the front. The pattern for this one has photos to help you to understand how to create the knot. You can obviously just sew it together if you just want a plain headband. But yeah, it's called the Moon Twine Headband. It's available on my website and on my Ravelry. I could probably put it on to show you what it looks like on an actual person instead of a mannequin. But it's nice wide headband. It's negative ease so that it stays on your head when you're out walking. And you can see it covers your ears nicely. Doesn't look that great with my hair down, but that's okay. So the knot goes at the front, and it's nice and wide to cover your ears, but you can still have a bun or a ponytail poking out the back. Yeah, it's really simple. It's only stockinette, just knitting required, and then a little bit of fancy sewing to get the knot. But it's nothing really. It's just a whip stitch or a tacking stitch to get that in place. So that's my Moon Twine headband, available on my website and on my Ravelry. And it's super soft and super warm. It's designed to fit an adult head, the pattern instructions, but you could modify it for a child size if you want to. So that could even be suitable for a beginner knitter. The next one is also suitable for a beginner knitter, and that is my Ring Chant beanie. And I've made this in my colorway Rejuvenate, which I featured on the last episode. So this is a close-fitting beanie with Gala ridges down the sides and a swirling cap design. It's available in a newborn to adult large size. Pop pop it on quickly. It's quite a fitted beanie. Yeah, nice easy knit. And I also knit up a tiny little baby one to show you what that looks like. So we've got an adult small and a teeny tiny newborn. So that's also available on my Ravelry and on my web shop if you're interested in that pattern. There's a few more patterns in progress, and I have a couple more on there that I haven't featured today. I launched my Scarth cowl probably a couple of months ago now, but go and check it out. There will be more coming. As I mentioned, I have so many in my brain that need to come out and become an actual thing. I have started redrafting the vest for the one that I made my daughter, because a lot of you said that you'd like the shoulders to match up, so it kind of needs an entire rework. So that one might take me a little bit longer, sorry. So that's the Broomstitch feature for this episode. Brings me to books I'm reading and podcasts I'm watching. So I've mentioned before that I tend to prefer to use an audiobook rather than a physical book, because then I can continue to knit, or I can knit on the train and listen to my audiobook. So I get to do two of my hobbies at once. I read Faebound by Saara El-Arifi. I had just started it in the last episode, so I hadn't gotten very far, but I was really enjoying the lore and the world that she was creating and painting with her descriptions, and just the way that she uses language to... It's quite poetic in a lot of ways, but it's not overly descriptive or has too much information that it makes the book hard to enjoy. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. A lot happened in the last couple of chapters. And so now I'm on to the second book, and I'm about halfway through that. It's called Cursebound, and I'm still thoroughly enjoying it. I haven't lost interest in the story at all. I'm still really engaged, and I read a little bit of it every day. So I will get through it fairly quickly, I think. Podcasts. I mentioned before that Bibi and Stephen are somebody that I watch regularly, and their podcast is called Just Another Knitting Podcast. And Stephen was the reason I bought the Darkness DK. They are avid fans of Outlaw Yarns, and they knit a lot in Deb's yarns. They are a really fun couple to watch. They seem to put out an episode every couple of weeks and talk a little bit about their travels and the different places they've gone and seen. Their knitting experiences are vastly different. So Bibi likes to knit lots of new and exciting things. She does prefer colour work and more plain, like stockinette knitting. She can whip up a jumper really fast if it is just plain knitting. She's a little bit adventurous, and she has some gorgeous colour choices. She's so vibrant and lively, and it's reflected in her knits and the colours that she chooses, like bright pinks and gorgeous oranges and blues she's trying to incorporate into her wardrobe. But she's just fun, and I relate to her a lot when she does the short story long, but often, and tells you all the details and gets really excited about whatever she's talking about, and I thoroughly enjoy watching that. Stephen is into doing a lot of intricate knitting, and the projects that he takes on are just jaw-dropping. So he's done a lot of cables. The colourwork projects that he chooses are just incredible, and I wouldn't dream of picking some of the patterns that he knits. He's a big fan of Alice Starmore by the look of it, and he's done a few of her patterns with some items for Bibi. He's done her some colourwork knits. He's done the eagle collar, which is a whole lot of little feathers to be worn with the she shader, which is a reverse cardigan. So Bibi's got like a whole outfit that Stephen knit her, but I thoroughly enjoy watching those two. I love their dynamic. I got the privilege of meeting them when we did our podcast and meet up to draw the prizes for the Kiwi Mail, and so we got to have a little bit of a chat. But yeah, I highly recommend them. They've got heaps of different things to talk about and show, Because Stephen chooses a little bit more intricate projects, his sometimes take a little bit longer, but there's never any shortage of things that they have to chat about. And I love watching his progress and seeing how he puts the colours together. Highly recommend you check them out if you would like some entertainment. When I was sick with COVID, I messaged Bibi and said, I've been off work all day and I've gone back and watched all your old episodes that I hadn't seen. So I've had a whole day of Bibi and Stephen keeping me company. And she thought that was hilarious. So it's been really fun meeting them and getting to know them through the Kiwi Make Along, but also getting to know them through watching their episodes. So that's kind of the end of the podcast content. I usually give a little bit of a life update. I mentioned before that I'd shipped off the prizes to my prize winners for the Kiwi Make Along and for the giveaway that I did on the podcast for reaching 100 subscribers. So thank you to my lovely winners for getting into contact with me and letting me know that your packages have arrived. And I'm so excited to see what you decide to make with the yarns that you chose or I chose for you. I'm still waiting to hear about my job, so there's no update there. We do have a date that we should know more by late October, so maybe next time I'll be able to give you an update on that. Potentially I have some other exciting news in the pipeline, but I don't want to jinx it, so I'll let you know a little bit more when I know for sure. I've booked a trip away for the new year. So I'm really looking forward to taking some time out and exploring. Because of the environment that we work in, we get forced to take annual leave at Christmas time, and instead of just sitting around home, we sort of decided we should go and do something. So we've booked a trip away to do a bit of exploring around New Zealand. So I will give you a travel update and have a whole bunch of photos to show you when that has happened. So that's all for today. I hope you've been inspired by something that you've seen here. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with me. I know there are a lot of podcasts and similar content out there. So know that I see you and I appreciate you, and thank you very much. Feel free to reach out or comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But for now, may your yarn never tangle and may your projects always enchant. Remember, a little magic goes a long way. Happy crafting, everyone.